Lewis, welcome to the Happiness Happens podcast. I'm so excited to have you on here today.
Thank you very much. It's really, really good to be here, all the way over the pond. So, yeah.
I love that. Can you tell us where home is, where you're located?
Home is East London. So,
Oh,
obviously, the UK, London
yeah.
in the UK. There is Londons all over the place in the world, though. So, I have learned I have to actually specify the UK. So, yeah, yeah,
That's funny. I actually have a London very close, well, not very close, but it's a couple hours away from us, London, Ontario in Canada. So,
yeah,
mhm.
yeah. And I used to live in New York for a bit. And there's a London a little bit outside of New York as well. So, people always get
Oh,
confused when I would say from London. They're like, from
but
there
where?
or from there?
And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, but really? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I
Just
mean,
listen to my voice and then ask me again. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. I love that. All right, we're going to have a lovely conversation today. And, for our friend listening right now, it may be a little bit of a different topic because we are going to talk a little bit about trading because that's what you do. But I want to talk about it in relation to overall happiness and more of the financial side and the financial perspective, which I think is so important for
hmm
people to be aware of or having their awareness. But before we go any further, I want to know what happiness means for you.
I think it's such a brilliant question. And I
Thank
think
you.
if I'm really, really honest, happiness for me isn't an easy emotion to feel or an easy thing to
Mm,
feel like I've attained it. And there's various reasons behind that. And again, I don't say that as a depressive person. I'm a
no.
very happy-go-lucky type person. I'm not particularly depressive. I think the sense of happiness, I think, is quite elusive for me. So I think
Mm,
if I then think about when am I my happiest, which is probably a good way to find what makes you happy, is to think about those moments and those situations where you are your happiest. It's
mm,
for me when I'm connecting really deeply with people, when I'm meeting new people and I'm in new experiences and I'm growing. So I think some of the happiest times of my life is when I've been traveling to new places and I meet people on a night out who are just fascinating to me, and I
mm.
get to ask them all these interesting questions and get to know more about them, and that pushes me out of my comfort zone. It causes me to think differently. And so I think for me, happiness has to have an element of growth in
Mm.
there. Being static in any area of my life makes me very unhappy. So happiness to me definitely is about growth and about challenge and about moving forward. Yeah, definitely it's got to have that element in there for me to feel happy.
That is beautiful. And I want to acknowledge something that you said right there because I think that I agree with you fully. We look at happiness as this big thing that we need to achieve in life or need to be all the time, and that's not necessarily the truth. I mean, what
Mm,
I've learned through this journey, I've had this podcast for years now, and what I've learned through this journey, when I was first starting out the show, just a little context for you and our listener right now. When I was first starting out the show, I used the podcast as my own growth tool. So I would talk
mm,
about different things and I would talk about fear and mindset blocks and all kinds of things in the beginning. They were all solo episodes. And the intention behind those conversations was to help people stretch a little bit. And my intention with the show was always okay, if we can just help one person feel less alone and feel more fulfilled, then I've done my job, And I
yeah,
mean, it's grown massively since
yeah,
then, which I'm so grateful for. And also, I've had many of my own very unhappy moments in life. And so
yeah,
what I've learned through happiness or, through discussing happiness with different people is that A, it means something different to everyone. B, it's like literally impossible to be happy 24/7 all the time. And I
yeah.
don't I don't even think you should want to, you know?
No, I don't. No,
You need those moments,
no.
right?
Well, we're whole human beings, aren't we? And
Mm,
and the part of the human experience is to feel that full range of emotions. And I had my own trauma and difficulty growing up,
mhm,
which meant I shut down lots of different emotions, and good and bad emotions were shut down. I was very neutral on an emotional level, and it was only in my mid-20s that I started to heal in those different areas and start to be able to feel my emotions. Like I didn't cry for many, many years, and now I
mm,
can cry. Unfortunately, that means I probably don't feel as happy all the time as I probably used to feel, but that wasn't necessarily real happiness. It was a bit more of a robotic, forcing yourself to be positive type of happiness rather than true happiness. So I completely agree with you. If the human experience is a spectrum of experience, and to really appreciate happiness as one emotion, you need to have felt the opposite, and have it kick in every now and then. It's like, I love getting sick. And I know that sounds crazy. Not like full on sick, but like a bit of a cold, like bit run down. I love that because it reminds me how good it is to be healthy. And I
Mm.
love that feeling. And every time I get sick, I remember how awful it is to be sick. And when I'm healthy, I get to a point where I forget what it's like to be sick. And I think this is what it's going to be like forever until I get sick. I'm like, oh yeah, it feels so good being healthy. I love it. And I have
Hmm.
that greater level of appreciation and gratitude because of the full spectrum rather than just trying to stick in one area the whole time.
This analogy that you just used is something that I think about often, and I didn't think that anybody else really thought this way. So the fact that you just said that, I this is exactly my thoughts when it comes to, especially, getting sick with a cold or a flu or whatever. You kind of sit in that and you're like, oh, this really sucks right now. But like you were saying before, you cannot have those really amazing, fulfilling moments without having something that doesn't feel so amazing and so fulfilling, because otherwise you wouldn't be able
Yeah,
to differentiate between the two emotions. It would just
yeah,
be one emotion all the time. And
yeah,
when you continue to grow, when you continue to transform, and I like that you said connection in the beginning, because connection is one of my biggest core values. Connection means growth. Connection means allowing you to step into something different. And I
hmm,
feel like that is so much of what you help people do. I feel like you allow them to connect to this different part of themselves that, maybe it isn't maybe they're not trying to access happiness in that word specifically, but maybe they're trying to access inner peace. Maybe they're trying to access joy. Maybe they're trying to access freedom. All three of
yeah,
those things is what you create all the time.
yeah,
So, like I mentioned in the beginning, you're not my typical guest that I bring on the show just from the specific thing that you do, which is from the trading world. But I think that it's really neat to have this opportunity to have a look inside what that world looks like. And also some of the biggest blocks that, you see people have when it comes to money. So maybe just really quickly for our listener right now, what exactly that shift or that transformation that you help people with?
yeah. And I think I want to caveat everything I'm about to say by the fact that I'm a bit of a unicorn in my field. And by that, I just mean not many people do what I do because they
Mm.
like helping people the way that I like helping
Mm.
people. So in my background, I originally trained as a counselor within the church context. So I was a Christian counselor therapist, and I had
Wow.
a global business doing that. And then I went into finance stuff after. For various different reasons, I had to walk away from that world, partly because of emotional burnout and my own trauma and things like that, various different reasons.
Right.
So I am a bit of a unicorn. So hearing what I do and how I do it isn't necessarily representative of that educational industry at large,
Mm. Okay,
if
I
I'm being
have to
honest.
caveat also, because I love that you've said this. There are so many different stories and ideologies that pop up when people hear trading. You think of like Wolf of Wall Street and like,
Yeah,
in New York, like the whole trading street where all of the bit like and all of these
Wall
like big
Street.
macho
Yeah,
walls, yeah,
yeah.
Wall Street. Wow, how did that slip out of my mind? But all these like big, macho guys who are all on the phone. It's like all of that all the time. And I'm loving that you're bringing like intention into what you do. So please keep going. But I really wanted to acknowledge that because I think that is so special that you do that.
Yeah. And there is so many preconceived ideas about traders, and the problem is a lot of them are actually correct if you're
Mm.
looking for that world. And there's a load of perception about it's super risky. You have to spend loads of time doing it. You need loads of money to start.
Right.
Actually, none of those things are true. Not the way that I teach people, anyway.
Hmm.
So what I do is I teach people how to trade the financial markets. So that's forex, that's stocks, that's shares, that's even a bit of crypto if they want to. I don't personally trade crypto. I believe in it. I buy and hold it, but a lot of my students do trade crypto. Now, the reason I say trade versus just invest is investing is more about buying and holding for the long term. So we're thinking future returns when we invest. When we trade, we're thinking much more shorter term. So we're in a position for a few days to a few weeks. So we hold, if we're trading a stock, for example, we would buy, say, Tesla, and then a few days later we would sell it when we've made profit, that type of thing, as opposed to
Mm.
buying Tesla now, selling it in 5 years.
Sure.
Different mindset, different process, different system.
Right.
So what I do is I teach people how to do that shorter term, but in less than 30 minutes a day. And the reason why I'm so passionate about doing that is because people have this ideology that it's going to take them all day long. They're not going to be able to do it in and around a job, all of that sort of stuff. And I like to smash that because what I'm about doing, and the reason I do what I do is about transformation. It's about people being able to have the time to find their happiness, have the time to find their passion, have the time to find their joy. And trading for me is not necessarily my passion. Helping people is. And a lot of my students, their passion isn't trading, but it's a vehicle that creates two things which allows them to live their passion: time and money. So if you can get time and money, more of that, and we do that in less than 30 minutes a day, then you completely open up what your life can be and what you can experience and what you can do and where you can go and who you can spend your time with and all of those types of things. So that's really what I do. It's about creating a vehicle for people, teaching them a skill set which will create that vehicle rather, that will allow them to trade for the rest of their lives without me, because otherwise, if it's reliant on me, then they're not empowered, they're disempowered, and they're reliant. And I'm about empowering people. So it's about teaching them the skill set that they can use for themselves forever, which gives them the money that they need to do what they need to do and want to do. And it's only going to take them 30 minutes a day in order to do that. And then they can do what they want with their life.
I think that is incredible. And so, when you're helping people with this, what would you say is one of the biggest blocks that you see in general people have when it comes to money, or even wanting to take some of their money and begin this journey of trading or investing their money in wherever, to begin with?
Yeah, I think there's a few major blocks, and the blocks come into everything, every type of opportunity. Trading is a phenomenal opportunity for people to change their lives if they want to. I don't know an opportunity like trading which you can get exponential growth once you understand compound interest and growing pots of money with such low risk. So I think one of the initial barriers is that it feels scary, it feels risky, it's the unknown. But we know with anything unknown, if you have the right support, you can master that skill set. I remember when I first walked into a gym many years ago, and I probably haven't walked back into the gym as many times as I should do to be healthy, but I didn't know what I was doing. But when I had someone, a coach, walk me through what the equipment was, how to use the equipment, it became a lot less scary. I became a lot more comfortable in that space, and I could then actually master what I needed to do to get into shape. Same with languages, and I always describe learning to trade like learning a language. You don't necessarily have the hooks of understanding to learn the language straight away. It's kind of like trying to learn Japanese or Chinese or Arabic. It's not just that you have to learn new words, it's you have to learn a new alphabet. So because you have a new alphabet, you don't have those hooks of understanding. Whereas if you're trying to learn French or Spanish as an English speaker, you've already got some words that are the same. Some of the sentence structure is fairly similar. You have that base understanding. Whereas learning trading can feel like learning Japanese. But once you understand those foundations, it becomes very, very simple. And we keep it super simple so that people can get to the point where they're trading live within just a couple of months in a really, really safe and secure way.
Mm, powerful. Okay. So, when someone does this, what are some of the biggest transformations that you've seen happen maybe within your students, or if there's like a key one that sticks out to you?
Oh, such a good question because it is different. And I think people would expect me to answer that question with, oh, we had this person who had this much money and now they have this much money.
Right.
But the transformation is so much deeper than that. Okay, yes, we have those things happen, but some of my favorite ones are one of my students, a guy called Dan. He'd actually tried trading before. And I would say probably 95% of my students have never even looked at investments whatsoever, never even touched it. So they're completely brand new. That's about 95% of my students. There are 5 who've tried before. And Dan was one of these 5% who had tried before, been trying for about 4 years and couldn't make it work. And he'd actually found me on Instagram and was following me for a few years and kept asking me to teach him, but I just wasn't in a place where I was ready to take people on and teach people. I was still developing my own methodology around it, which is what I later started teaching people. So when I did, he jumped straight on and we did some mentorship with him. And he basically just ran with it. He did fantastic. He really got down to it, put the work in. When I say put the work in, it's really about testing strategies, and we give you that process. It's not a lot of work, and maybe an hour a day till you then know what you're doing, and then it's 30 minutes a day, like I said.
Right.
And it turned out, he didn't tell me, but it turned out he had very, very high debts with the government. Don't ask me how he got into that situation, but he had very, very high debts with the government.
Yeah.
But within 6 months, he was able to trade his way to have an account size enough to pay off that debt. And then I don't know what happened next, but he managed to have more debt with the government and he traded his way out of that debt as well. So he was
Wow.
then completely debt free. And so again, this is when if we're talking about happiness, imagine being completely debt free compared to 12 months before having a lot of debt and not knowing how the heck you're going to pay it off. The
Mm-hmm.
happiness and the transformation in his own persona and peace levels was phenomenal. So that's one of my favorite stories. And
That's so
there's a few
cool.
different stories like that. One very quick one as well. One of our students, his daughter was looking to buy a house, and
Mm.
he traded his way up to have a large enough account size that he could help his daughter buy her first house. And the reason I like those stories is because then they're not necessarily like multi-million-pound stories, but they're real, they're true, they're real life impact, helping people improve their lives. And that's what I'm about. That's what I like to see. And so those ones are really meaningful to me. But I get messages every week, every other week from students saying that this has been really transformational for them, even just working through our course content. I'm like, I don't know what's transformation about, just the knowledge, but they love it. And we put a lot of effort into creating what we've created because we want to
Mm-hmm.
help people. So I mean, in one sense, the energy that's put into it is for the purpose of transformation. So I'm not surprised we hear that in one sense, but it does amaze me how many people just really feel like this has changed their life in a really positive and impactful way. And sometimes that's just having someone like me or our head coach believe in them and believe that they can do something different, believe that they can change their story, believe that they can change the financial future trajectory of their life. Because my passion and desire is to help people work less but earn more. So earn more money through trading by actually working less. And then that, again, what that opens up for you is the time and the freedom to do what you want to do with who you want to do it with. And that should hopefully create some happiness for people.
I sure hope so. And this is so incredible. Two things come to mind for me when you're saying this. The first one is I can imagine our listener right now may be like, okay, but this sounds great on paper, but how do I actually do it? And I know you can't take us through your entire methodology on this podcast. So I will ask you to, drop all of your links towards the end of our conversation so they can do that. And at the same time, I think that the second piece of this, what's coming up for me, is going through your course is probably helping people heal a lot of their old money stories and money wounds and beliefs
Yeah,
that they have around money. Have you
yeah.
seen transformation in that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how powerful is that transformation of taking that old money story and reinventing it into something new?
Oh, it's crazy powerful. It is crazy powerful. And I think because we do a lot in community, I'm very, very community orientated. So we have a whole support system, which is the community. And just the interactions that go on within that community kind of level people up or break them out of this thinking of I suppose poverty mindset and poor mindset and being bad and things with your money. Like the amount of people
Yeah.
that have unintentionally gotten themselves out of debt, not necessarily through trading, but just being better with their money within our community is crazy. And we don't like have a specific teaching on how to get out of debt, but they just
Mm,
naturally will start getting themselves out of debt because of the level and the type of conversation that go on within that group.
hmm.
And for me as well, so I like I said, grew up in a very, very religious context, very spiritual context, and I'm very,
Yeah.
very grateful for that. But some of the poor money habits that I inherited, because hey, you can live by faith, it doesn't matter. So you spend without thinking and you just expect God to provide. And amazingly, I was always provided for. And there's some crazy
Go
stories
figure.
behind that as well. Yeah, go figure. But I genuinely believed I was meant to be poor for the rest of my life. And
Right.
I didn't think that money was a thing which I was going to be able to get access to or that was right for me to get access to. So I had to change that. And actually, that thinking change started to come when I started to actually research what the Bible would say about money. And it talks about you can't serve two masters and all of that type of thing. And the word for money is actually a neutral term in the Bible. So in the original dialect, it's not evil, it's not good, it's neutral. So it's like,
Mm,
if it's neutral, then surely it's about then what I choose to do with it. So
right.
if I use it to serve the purposes of good, then surely that's a good thing. So I was like,
Exactly.
okay, there we go.
That is such a really good perspective. And I think that is so important to highlight here too, because it's like, you get we could talk about, I am not, someone who reads the Bible from front to back. I grew up in a Catholic household, so I definitely have a religious background that's shifted to more of a spiritual understanding of
Same.
energy
Yeah.
and purpose and higher self and higher power. And
Yeah.
at the same time, it's about being very discerning about all of the things that we have access to in life, all of the information that we have access to and that we read, because the way something is written may not be the way that it has to be. You know what I mean? And so if you can look at something and find the balance in between, kind of like what you're saying here, that it's not evil and it's not good, but if you're using it to serve, then you will always be rewarded. And that can be taken into any type of context. You're using
Yeah.
your money to serve your family, you're using your money to
Yeah.
serve your community, to serve your business, to serve your clients, to serve your team. That can happen in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be just either or.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. And I just I have a YouTube channel as well, and I just recorded a video today actually
Mm.
about how to change the world using money, basically. And I don't know why I'm talking about the church so much. I very rarely talk about my church context this much, but in
I
church we
believe that it's meant to happen this way.
it's meant to happen. And I did a lot of like missionary work, and not necessarily, oh, let's convert people to the faith, although there was some of that, but also charity work is also mission work within the church. And
Right.
and they had this phrase that money is the muscle of mission. Because if you want to build some schools, you want to build some hospitals in some country that doesn't have access to education and healthcare, guess what you're going to need in order to do it? Money.
Money.
And then I was thinking about it on a smaller scale. So like if people want to change the world and they want to put their money towards good causes, the best thing they can do is set a goal of what they want to earn to have the lifestyle they want. And then anything over that goes towards those things. And again, I travel a lot. I love travel. And what do they always say on a plane? Put your mask on first and then help others. Why don't we
Mm-hmm.
do that financially? Why are we not taking care of ourselves financially first before we then go out and help other people?
Mm.
Someone was saying if they won the lottery, they'd take those millions and they'd give it all to charity. And I was like, are you stupid? Like, what a stupid decision. Like, surely, if you want to give all that money to charity, the best thing you could do is set up a charity, put all that money within the charity into investments, which will generate money forever. So
Mm-hmm.
that charity lasts forever
Yes,
rather than money's gone there and then. It's
exactly.
just
Or
different
even
way of
just half.
thinking.
Like half of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
money that you get from that, you put into something and you invest it. I don't think that, every like I don't know. I'm of the mindset of like I have all kinds of different investments. I have all kinds of different ways that my money goes into different places. I have investments within my business, investments within my personal, like whatever it is. And
yeah,
I think that the more you can diversify that, it's really important, because it kind of, in my opinion, and you can tell me your opinion, leads to your idea of financial peace, right? When
yeah,
you have that and you don't have to worry, you
yeah,
feel at peace, which is, I did this is so random, because you're just saying you don't talk a lot about, religion and your upbringing. And I really don't talk a lot about my own like personal values. But over the last little bit, I've deep dove into, who am I as a person? Like, what do I stand for? What values are important
yeah,
to me and all of that, right? And one of them that came up was peace as a
yeah.
very huge core value in my life. And that's actually also how I define happiness, is through peace, inner peace, however you want to
Same.
look at it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on financial peace and what that means to you.
I love it. I think it's such, and I don't know what it is about the past 6 months, but I've got such a bee in my bonnet about this. And if
Mm,
you've ever been around the personal finance world or even a personal development world, they always talk about financial freedom.
yeah.
You need to get financially free. And actually, I just don't like the term. I think
Yeah.
it doesn't sit with my core values, actually.
Yeah.
What sits with my core values is financial peace. I
Mm,
want peace. It's not about financial freedom. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like freedom as well. But if you've got
sure.
peace, you've got freedom, in my opinion.
I
That's
agree
the
with
flow.
you. Oh, you're free from all
So
burden. All burden.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm very strong on that. So I'm also a property investor here in the UK, and I've got
Mm,
an okay sized portfolio. But I realized again, one of my core values is peace. I want to have a peaceful life. I don't want to over risk, over leverage, like grind, 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 go, go, go. I'm not interested in that. That's not me. That makes me unhappy.
mm,
So with my own portfolio of properties, I've been gradually paying down the debt to have a cash portfolio, because there is so much more peace in that, because I don't have to worry about the government changing the taxation on it, the mortgage lenders changing the rates and increasing the rates. I will have financial peace. And every single month that I pay off more of those mortgages, I have more peace established because I've got less to worry about going wrong with the properties, which a lot of property investors don't agree with that style or that method, because you could make that money work so much harder. Yeah, but I don't want to go to bed stressing. I want to be able to go to bed and fall asleep and be totally fine and not worry about anything.
Exactly. Oh, that is so good. So, what I'm hearing you say here is that people can trade, people can get into this type of industry, people can, you know, do what they want with their money in this sense. And they also don't have to grind it out all day long. They don't have to be sitting on the phone all day and like this trade and that trade and all that. And before you
Yeah.
answer, I do want to caveat this entire episode. I'm going to say it in the intro as well. This is not financial advice. This is not us saying, take all of your money and go trade it right now. This is not saying that it's 100% guaranteed or anything like that. So you have to be discerning with what
Yeah.
you're doing with your money, and maybe take Lewis's program to help guide you through that. But I don't want this to be like I listened to it on the Happiness Happens podcast and they said that I could take all of my money and trade it and that I would have financial peace. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want
Yeah.
that to happen.
Exactly. So yeah, funny enough, my YouTube channel is called Not Financial Advice, so I'm always
Oh,
covered
I love that.
legally, so that I'm never, no one can ever come after me for that. But yeah, and my whole thing is about people not having to work super duper hard for money. So if you can make a full-time salary off of 30 minutes a day, let's do that, right? You may not get there in 1 month, you may not get there in 6 months, but you can definitely get there in 12 months.
Yeah.
So why would we not give ourselves the opportunity, the chance to actually create that as a life? And I think, again, coming back to hurdles that people face, I think a lot of the time people don't think they deserve it. They almost think it's too good to be true, but that too good to be true is actually a fear that it's not going to work out for them. It's a fear of failure. It's a fear that they're going to lose money. It's like, well, you may fear that, but my greatest fear is not living the life I could have lived. And I let that fear trump the other fears to force me to take action. And again, it's not too good to be true. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. You have to put the work in. This doesn't come easy. It's not get rich quick. Is it super duper hard? No, it's not, because I've spent 9 years now, over 9 years, trading myself and developing a system which allows you to do it really simply and to automate a lot of the process, which is why it only takes half an hour. That's what is going to allow you to have that lifestyle that you want to have. And again, we start small, start with a small amount of money, get confident, get competent, and then you go larger. And that's how we've got people who traded with initially £1,000 in their account now trade with over 500,000 in their account, because they've built up that competency. But again, they didn't get there in 6 months, they didn't get there in 12 months, they grew to that over time.
Exactly. Oh, that's so great. So while we're on this topic of how to use the program itself, could you tell us, before I ask you my last question, could you tell us where our listener can find you right now and where to find your program as well? I'm going to put the links in the show notes, but it's nice for you to say it too.
Yes, so I spend most of my life, probably too much of my life, on Instagram. So you can find me there. So my name is on Instagram is at Lewis_Crompton. Please be careful, because there is a lot of fake accounts of me that pop up every other week. There's probably been about 30 or 40 fake accounts for me already. If someone DMs you asking you to give them money to put into an investment, that's not me. I teach you to do it for yourself. I may DM you saying, do you want to do my training? That's very different. But
very different.
I will not ask you, I will not ask you to give me money to trade for you. That is not what I do. So just be very, very careful about that. And then I have a Facebook group called Star Trading. That's the name of the company, the name of the business. So if you can find that as well, Star Trading Financial Markets is something on there. But again, if you go on my Instagram, there's links in my bio for access to all of that stuff too. And I've got loads of free resources like events, and I've got an ebook and all of that, and the YouTube channel as well. So yeah, there's loads of stuff I've got for people.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to ask you my last question. And it is one I have been asking this question for more than 3 years now, and I always get a different answer. How can someone create a little more happiness in their day every day starting today?
Oh, I don't want to give a generic answer. I really don't. Okay, so my initial go-to is gratitude, but I'm gonna give a different answer. So I'm gonna give gratitude in a different way. So this is something which has really been helping me the past 12 months when I get not anxiety attacks, but I start to feel that anxious feeling coming up. And I use gratitude as a weapon. So the second I feel that anxiousness, I will go hard into gratitude and just say everything I can think of that I'm grateful for. And that really helps subside that anxious feeling. So that's really good. The other thing I'm going to say is put on your favorite dance music and dance wherever you are, like nobody's watching. And if that's uncomfortable, do it somewhere that nobody's watching, but move your body and dance and just enjoy that music. And that will, even if you're not feeling it, is going to spark some happiness in you because your body will respond chemically to you dancing to one of your favorite songs. So yeah,
Mm.
do that.
Those are excellent tips, and they're both very tangible, and you can actually take them and implement them right away. And, as you were saying that, I was thinking, I do this Clubhouse room, which some people will say, oh, you're still on Clubhouse. But a friend of mine started this room, I don't know, like a year and a bit ago. And he asked me to help co-mod it with a bunch of other people. And so, we do that every morning at 7 o'clock. And it's all about podcasting because I'm a podcast producer and whatever. So whatever. So that's great. So I go on there and we do that. And one of the co-mods had said to me the other day, he's like, so one day I woke up, it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I joined a new gym, and the only class times that actually work with my schedule are at like 5:30 in the morning or like 6 o'clock or something like that. And that call is at 7. And the first time that I did that call, you move your body, right? You don't really realize how much of an impact it has on your life and your energy and how you show up every single day until somebody else
Yeah,
points it out for you. And so he had said, I got on the call and they do roll call. I wrote, oh, good morning, good morning, good morning. And I was like, oh, good morning, everyone. So nice to be here, whatever. And they were all like, what happened to you? And I was like, oh, I did a workout this morning. Like, didn't even think about it. And
yeah,
then so that was fine, like whatever, moved on. And then I think it was like the next day or the day after, I didn't do a workout in the morning, and I was like, oh, good morning, like lower energy. And the person had said, like, I've noticed, and I can hear a noticeable difference in your voice of when you work out in the morning and when you don't. And I was like, wow, that's really crazy.
yeah,
So I guess I don't know why I'm sharing this story, but maybe just as a reminder that if you don't think it's making an impact, it makes an impact. And when you do something over time, you eventually build that muscle, and it creates this, really beautiful way of showing up in the
yeah,
world every single day. So
yeah,
anyways,
yeah. It
that's just
does.
my
Yeah.
my addition to your thought. Lewis, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. This was such a wonderful conversation.
It's been lovely. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. I hope you have a lovely day ahead, and remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.